And also breaking this morning, sources confirming to Fox News that U.S. forces struck dozens of Iranian military targets on Kharg Island throughout the night.
So this as we are less than 12 hours away from President Trump's deadline for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz or face obliteration.
Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst is live in Tel Aviv with the very latest. Hey, Trey, what can you tell us?
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. Fox News can confirm overnight the United States hit dozens of targets on Iran's Kharg Island. This is the island responsible for more than 90% of Iran's oil exports. Fox's Jennifer Griffin says the targets included bunkers, radar stations, and ammunition storage. As this was taking place, the clock is ticking as it relates to that deadline President Trump laid out Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time, just about 12 hours from now, before Iran must make a deal with the United States, or the president says he will order strikes against Iranian power plants and bridges. This is what the president had to say yesterday from the White House.
We have a plan, because of the power of our military, where every bridge in Iran will be decimated by 12 o'clock tomorrow night, where every power plant in Iran will be out of business, burning, exploding, and never to be used again. I mean, complete demolition by 12 o'clock. And it'll happen over a period of 4 hours if we wanted to. We don't want that to happen.
I want to pull up here the demands for the United States and Iran. You can see here some big differences. The U.S. is calling for the dismantlement of Iran's nuclear facilities, zero enriched uranium, missile constraints, the Strait of Hormuz being opened, and an end to Iran's support of groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. Now, the Iranians are calling for guarantees as it relates to no further attacks, full sanctions relief, war compensation, a payment system for the Strait of Hormuz, and finally, the removal of regional U.S. bases. Now, the president told me over the weekend that Iran isn't even negotiating anymore about their nuclear program and that they've conceded already on many issues. They said that a variety of different points the Iranians came to the table, but they have lost that leverage, according to the president. With this talk of diplomacy, we're also learning more about the daring rescue that happened over the weekend to save a stranded U.S. airman. High-level U.S. sources telling Fox News that while the airman rescue was ongoing, CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper directed a strike on an IRGC headquarters in an underground facility in Tehran. B-2 bombers were using bunker buster bombs, the same weapons used during Operation Midnight Hammer, to obliterate that IRGC headquarters. This just gives you a sense of how kinetic the activity is in Iran at the moment. The United States maintains the ability to operate freely in the skies of Iran. And while the B-2 bombers were dropping bombs on a target outside of the Iranian capital, south of the city of Isfahan, there were hundreds of U.S. Special Forces rescuing their stranded colleague. Guys?
I'm sorry, Trey, there's some breaking news on Truth Social.
Yes.
Ainsley, do you want to read that?
Sure. So Donald Trump just posted this. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change, where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionary, wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight, one of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran.
So this is clearly an escalation. As everyone knows, the president has an 8 p.m. deadline. He talked about the power, energy plants being targets up the rail stations as well. We know the notice from the Israeli, the IDF, have told the civilians do not get on the railroad because America, the Israelis, we don't target civilians. There's only one side that is doing that. But the president is making it very clear that these options are still on the table. He does not want death and destruction, but the deadline is the deadline, and it doesn't seem like he's going to move it.
No, and Trey Yingst still with us live from Tel Aviv. Trey, what's your reaction to this new post?
Look, I spoke with President Trump over the weekend, and I can tell you that he's not bluffing as it relates to targeting Iran's energy infrastructure, power plants, and bridges. He was very serious. If the Iranians are unwilling to make a deal, there will be extremely heavy consequences. The president in this post on Truth Social, though, says a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. And so certainly questions to ask the president today about the context of this post on Truth Social and possible plans for the United States and what the list of targets may look like and the type of munition that would be used against the Iranians if he moves forward with strikes against the regime. Again, this is the final moment here, an off-ramp for the Iranians. The president, it appears in this post on Truth Social, is once again putting the most amount of pressure possible on the regime in order to encourage them to make an agreement. The sense that I got from the president is that he doesn't want to have to take this action, but he is willing to do it if the Iranians are still unwilling to make a good faith deal. I do want to just give you a little bit of additional information that I'm getting from Israeli sources about the energy program in Iran. A senior Israeli defense official telling me just now the Islamic regime's greatest vulnerability is energy. They describe the energy system in Iran as the Achilles heel for the Islamic Republic because roughly 50% of Iran's GDP is based on their energy program. And this is part of the reason that the president is focusing his threats on the energy infrastructure inside of Iran. The president understands that when it comes to the Iranian regime, the two things that are keeping this regime afloat are their energy infrastructure that is used to funnel money to the IRGC and the weapons that are currently being used against U.S. forces and allies across the region, and the oil infrastructure. And as Fox can confirm, overnight, dozens of U.S. strikes targeted Kharg Island, where 90% of Iran's oil exports are located. This gives you a sense that the United States is looking once again to send a final message to the Iranian regime. The president on Truth Social just moments ago sending a final message to the Iranian regime.
Yeah, he sure has. And certainly we were talking about an escalation of significance here. And as you point out, Trey, so succinctly, Iran is a one commodity economy. It's also tied to the global market. But when you let's go back to this post we just got, because that is strong language, because many have wondered whether or not the power plants and bridges would have any military nexus or not. A military nexus would be a military target, but while a civilian one perhaps would not be. How do you read this post as it relates to whether or not this is confined to the military nexus or the entire country? And just to, again, for our viewers, just getting this breaking news, let us give it to you again. He says this: a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionary, wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight, one of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran.
Hey, Trey, also, Iran is urging, this is what I had heard from another agency, a news agency earlier, urging their youth to gather as human shields and form these human chains around the power plants.
Yeah, I saw those reports as well. If they do that, that is illegal under international law. You can't use human shields on the battlefield. But we should note here a few things as it relates to the president's post on Truth Social. What the president knows and what the public knows are two very different things. There are a lot of conversations and preparations going on behind the scenes. Even as we are talking right now, a very high-ranking source just sent me a screenshot of the president's post here and is typing right now. There is an understanding that both Israel and the United States, as Operation Epic Fury continues, are working side by side on an hourly basis to prepare a variety of contingency plans on the battlefield. And if we just step back for a moment, we're analyzing this post on Truth Social, but let's think about what's happened over the past 24 hours. The past 48 hours as well. You had B-2 bombers fly from the United States to Iranian territory and drop bunker buster bombs on the outskirts of Tehran, targeting senior commanders in an underground bunker. I am told just right now, a senior Israeli official confirming to Fox News that the Israelis have started strikes against Iranian rail infrastructure. Remember, earlier today, the Israelis warned civilians to stay off the trains in Iran. They have started to target the bridges of the rail system in Iran as we speak. Additionally, you have these strikes overnight against Kharg Island, the largest export facility in Iranian territory, accounting for around 90% of Iran's oil exports. And you have ongoing U.S. and Israeli strikes against Iranian military infrastructure. What we are looking at right now is a staging operation. The United States and Israel are preparing. If a deal is not made, there will be an increase in strikes against the Iranian regime. The president described it as Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, to go after this critical infrastructure inside of Iran. But what's very interesting here, I spoke with a high-ranking source last night, and I asked what happens next if the president orders these strikes. And they said, again, this is the Achilles heel of the regime, targeting energy infrastructure. And what it may actually do is force their hand at the negotiating table. Because, again, the president has time and time again, even before Operation Epic Fury began, preferred a diplomatic option. But the Iranians have been unwilling to take a diplomatic option, and that is how we ended up in this Operation Epic Fury that is unfolding before our eyes as we speak. But the president very clearly on Truth Social just moments ago saying, however, now that we have complete and total regime change where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionary, wonderful can happen. The president looking to the future here and the possibility for the 90 million people that live inside of Iran.
So, Trey, let's step back for a second and provide some context to the audience. And I know you have some similar sources as well. The president has had a host of options on the table. And although we have had superiority when it comes to the skies, and we have taken a lot of targets out, especially people that are within the leadership of the government as well as the IRGC, terrorist cells within the country. There were other options that the president had initially that he did not target. And those are humans as well as different sites, as the president has laid it out with those rails, as well as the energy and the power plants. He saved those because he hoped that there would be some deal. Are we hearing that now we are moving toward those areas? Because it seems like that post would suggest that.
The short answer is yes. Having talked to the president in recent days, it appears if the Islamic Republic is unwilling to make a good faith deal, that everything is on the table for the United States. And you make a very important point. As this operation has developed, the United States and Israel have not only maintained control over the skies of Iran, but they've maintained targeting options. The Islamic Republic doesn't have the same ability as the United States and Israel have. And when we look at what's taking place right now, yesterday the U.S. Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, said something very important. He said yesterday was the largest bombing campaign since Operation Epic Fury began. And he said today will then be the largest bombing campaign since this operation began. This gives you a sense that each and every day the United States and Israel are increasing the amount of munitions and bombs that they are dropping on the Islamic Republic, military targets and officials there. On the other side, the Islamic regime is unable to keep up the amount of fire that they were able to launch in the early days of this war. And again, this speaks to the air superiority of the United States. So as the United States is increasing their targeting ability, the Iranian regime is decreasing theirs. They just simply cannot get off the amount of ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones that they could launch in the early days. They still pose a threat to the region. This is not over. But we're looking at a crisscross pattern here. As the U.S. is getting stronger, the Iranians are getting weaker.
Okay. All right. Trey Yingst, live for us in Tel Aviv.
Thanks,
Some
Trey.
breaking news. Trey, thank you very much.
Want even more Fox News on YouTube? Become a Fox News Patriot today. Click join to find out how.